Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Tonight is our big night where we discuss and approve the funding recommendations for this round of applicants spring of 2025. Our goal, our hope is to get through these funding recommendations tonight. I think last fall, it took us 2 meetings to get through them. So we'll see how it goes tonight. As always, we begin with general public comment. Is there anyone out there who would like to comment on anything CPC related? Now is your chance to do that. Raise your hand. Nobody? Okay. Moving on, Sarah sent us minutes. I believe it was October the 16th. Is that right, Sarah? Of 2024.
So, double check.
I had 10/16/24 when we were hearing from applicants
Yes.
for the fall round. Yes. Is there any discussion about those minutes? Motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Kevin, thank you. Jeff, second. Any further discussion about comments? Sarah?
Oh, great. Quick roll call. Lemmy?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Devin?
Yes.
Chris Tellman?
Yes.
Chris Tate?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And also, Brian, Sarah, did you get my comments with the corrections? There are a couple typos.
Okay. I will fix. Thank you.
Okay.
As always.
Sarah, was that are you searching for it?
I'm not. They were just minor typos, Martha? Yes, I think so.
Great. As always, thank you, Martha, for your eyes and your brain in making those minute comments. Okay, moving right along, Chair's report. One thing that Sarah sent me was sort of the updated figures for the tax surcharge exemptions for the CPA. As everyone knows, the first $100,000 of real estate tax or the value of the real estate tax is exempted from that CPA surcharge that we put on that. How that income exceptions or who qualifies for that is changes from year to year and went up significantly this last year in 2025. So folks who are either moderate income or low income and own property are available for exemptions and need to contact the office. And that figure of what constitutes moderate income and low income has gone up, thanks to us being included in a different sort of category, right, Sarah? Or a geographic category?
Yeah, so Northampton has traditionally been included in the Springfield Metropolitan Statistical Area. And we still are for like Section 8 housing vouchers and other federal government requirements, but this has changed at the state level. So we're now part of the Northampton Amherst MSA, which provides a much more accurate number than being included in Springfield.
Which actually means the income limits go up. And I don't know if that will impact, or hopefully that can be made known to people, and folks who are in need of that exemption can certainly apply for that. How do you make that knowledge available to people, Sarah? How is that?
It's primarily through the assessor, and that it is available on the CPC website as well, but if people do qualify, they can go directly to the assessor, and that exception would cover a few other programs as well. I think uh, stormwater or one of the other water and sewer fees is covered under that.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Sarah about that exemptions? No? Good to go. All right, moving right along, financial report. Sarah sent us an updated, or I guess somewhat updated report. And let me, before Sarah, you explain it in detail to us. CPA funds available for this round were 1,155,000. But correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, we actually subtract 3,000 from that, correct? Because we already spent money on the Forbes Library Calvin Coolidge collection.
Correct. Yes, I neglected to include the
So if we look at that, available to us is actually 1,552,485. If you look at what the applicant's requests are, the budget also does not reflect that the spacing on the name, the Ruggles Center has come in about $9,400 less than what they originally submitted. So rather than having 152,000, I'm sorry, 1,528,362 in requests, we have 1,518,962 in requests because of that $9,400 difference. Sarah, you want to run us through the rest of the financial overview? And while you're at it, looking at the bonding issues as well, if you could do that.
Sure. So this isn't new, as Brian noted. This is the continuation of the FY25 projected budget. So it goes down what's available in each reserve. So 747,000 of that is in the undesignated fund. 267,000 is in the open space reserve, and another 140,829 is in the historic reserve, and would only be available to spend on those types of projects. And the bonding was just finalized for the two most recent projects, the JFK Courts and the Ryan Road Playground. So those are reflected in this bonding capacity chart. So this shows for each fiscal year what the bonding obligations are, what that is as a percentage of the total CPA projected local revenue, and as the percent of the bonding capacity. So the new projects weren't included in FY25, but you'll see that that goes up substantially between FY25 and FY26. So this is just a rough estimate, especially since we don't have a solid handle on what the state match will be in any given year, of the amount that would be remaining to spend on other types of projects. And the max payment amount that could be made in any given fiscal year, including the principal and the interest.
Sarah, going back to the budget for one moment, the 140,000 in historic reserve, that would actually be $3,000. We'd take 3,000 out of that, correct? Because we spent that at for the Calvin Coolidge Library.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that small grant.
That's all right.
So it would be 137,000.
137,000 there. And can you go back to bonding for a moment and look at our bonding obligations?
Sure.
And a couple things on this. Just so we're still paying off Florence Fields and Bean Allard, and we continue to do that through to the fiscal year 26, the end of 26. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, so
Okay.
the final payments on those will be made next February for Florence Fields. Oh no, there's a little bit more interest. And then just so through FY 27. And then some remaining principal and interest on the Pulaski Park Overlook as well.
So we're 2 years out from still paying off the bonding for Pulaski and a
Yeah.
little bit less for Florence Fields. And then the Ryan Road and JFK are just really kicking in or beginning to kick in now, correct?
Yeah, so that will start in FY 26.
And can you scroll all the way to the bottom, please, for one moment? That
And
total principal
that's
due
for
is
this entire chart. So I would have to
Right.
do a quick tabulation for how much is remaining.
good. I was just making sure that that's not updated to actually
No,
reflect.
no, it's not. So there is just over 1.8 million in bonding obligations remaining.
Okay. And can you remind us which of the 8 projects that we have would be available for bonding this round?
So nothing that isn't owned by the city would be eligible. So clothing conservation and DAR would be out as well as the Ruggles Center. Lead School Playground could certainly be an option for bonding. Boggy Meadow Trail could be an option for bonding. And the cemetery stone preservation is a fairly small amount, but should also be available for a bond.
So really the main 2, correct me if I'm wrong, would be the Leeds school accessible playground, the Boggy Meadow Trail.
Correct.
Thank you, Sarah, for that clarification. Questions for Sarah? Jeff?
Just to go back to that bonding capacity chart that you said, that you had, Sarah. So we go up to roughly 40% of capacity, but then if you go back down, fiscal year 28, I think we drop from 34 to 19 when those other projects are paid off. So it's not a steady rise because those other projects are going to expire.
Correct. And it does go down every year,
Right.
FY 28, 29, and 30, because the interest and principal is front loaded on the loans.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions for Sarah? Everybody's good with the financial picture? Yes? All right. So here we go. Our time to discuss and, if time allows, approve funding recommendations for spring 2025. So the way we've done this in the past, which hopefully is, I think has worked pretty well, is that we've had a chance to sort of do a go round and just give our general thoughts about different projects and see where we are as individuals and as a committee with the 8 projects that are before us. Once we do that, we've done the shopping cart thing where we make sort of motions to put individual items into the shopping cart, and see how that plays out at the end of the 8 projects, and then go from there. So I think what we'll start is just by doing a go round, and if people can give folks can give general comments on how they're feeling about projects, if they have strong feelings that certain projects are really in need of funding, if they have thoughts about bonding, if they have thoughts about projects that can be put off or not funded at all. Keep in mind that we can always do partial funding. Remember that with the Clap House, Sarah sent us an updated sheet that they gave which showed us how they can reduce that amount of funding. I can't see where I put my summary of that. Here it is. They sort of teased out what the phase 2 would be, which was the accessible bathrooms. And we're able to say that that first round of getting people into the main building, into the bathrooms, redoing the bathroom was 248,000, and the phase 2 was 100,000. So that's really the only project that the applicant has said, here's what we can do with partial funding. So does that make sense with the folks? We'll start with a go round. Okay, thumbs up. Kevin, you want to start? I'm just going to go around in the circle that I am seeing people.
In the last two rounds, there was a an application that I was not positive about in each case. This round, there aren't any duds that I can see. So I can't weed it out in that way. All of them seem worthwhile. I have a couple of favorites, but none of them are duds. My inclination is to think about bonding the big one, the lead school program, and that would leave us enough money to pretty much fully fund the rest.
The couple projects that you were very excited about, Kevin, which were those?
The lead school playground, the Ruggles Center, the and I'm always hesitant to say I like the Boggy Meadow Trail, but I'm Conscom, so that's part of my um, my my priority is always to pay attention to that kind of stuff. So those are the three on my list.
And your thoughts about bonding are looking at the
At
leads
Yeah.
at Leeds. Yeah. Martha?
Okay, thank you. I have a more mixed assessment of these. I do agree that the Boggy Meadow Trail, I feel pretty strongly about that one. The DR house also, I thought was very well thought through. And I would like to see both phases of that funded if possible. And I thought Historic Northampton's was also very well thought through and clear. The mains field, I'm still a little stuck on that one because we still don't know what the results of the initial study are. And so it would be, I think the intent again is very good, but I think that I would be more comfortable if I knew more about the outcome of the existing conditions assessment. And I was also bothered a little bit by the increase in the public engagement piece of it that went up quite a bit over the course of 6 months. So that Laurel Park, I think is an important project. I think it could wait if we had to put it on hold. Okay, the Leeds Playground, I think is a very important project. I'm a little concerned about the effect that the tariffs are going to have on that equipment. We don't really know what's going to happen, and unless they've locked in the prices with O'Brien, I think that they may not have enough money to pay for it. But again, we don't know, so it's just something to consider. And then the Ruggles Center, I'm still finding very problematic. Again, I think it's a very important project. The intent is great, an important institution. I'm just concerned about the design of that and not complying with the ADA guidelines. And I don't see that they've responded to our comments from the last meeting about how that could be, the design could be altered to meet the guidelines. And I'm happy to discuss that more as we get into the deliberations.
Martha, thoughts on bonding?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that if we do the playground, I think we would need to bond that. I think that's the only one I would probably support. And the other question I had, I forgot to mention, was whether the funding for Boggy Meadow that was hopefully expected from the state, if there's any word about whether that's coming through or not, because that does reduce that budget by quite a bit. Sarah, do you have any idea what the status of those grants are?
Oh, for the Boggy Meadow Road project?
Yeah,
That will be announced probably in June or July.
okay. So if we were to fund it in full, then we would just we would get some money back, I guess, if that grant came through.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Martha. Chris Hellman?
Hi. Sarah, thanks again for the numbers. I think first and foremost, I'm supportive of the Leeds playground and would support bonding for that. And as Kevin points out, if we bond that, it gives us flexibility to do pretty much whatever we want to do on the other ones. I think that of the other projects, there are several that are meritorious, but which I have some specific concerns about the details. Um, Martha just raised the one about ADA compliance on Ruggles, which again, I love their work. I really want to support that, but I'm looking forward to hearing more from Martha on how we might work around the problem that she identified with regard to ADA compliance. I continue I continue to have mixed feelings about Mainsfield, um, in part because I'm still not sure what the city would be getting for $60,000, now $70,000. And like Martha, I would benefit from having a greater understanding of what the actual logistical problems with the site would be before we start having community conversations about how to utilize it. So I think that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Chris. Julia?
Thank you. Yep. So like my colleagues, I'd be in favor of, I support the playground, the accessible playground. And if we're going to bond, that certainly is the project that's most appropriate to bonding. And I'd be excited to see a second build of a new playground. I think we're not going to be able to predict the costs of nearly anything, Martha. I think it's, a good point that they're going to have some equipment to consider, but construction costs are also potentially going to look ugly over the next months. I'm impressed with how many applications we have around historic and preservation. Even thinking back to that small grant we did for Forbes that was focused on library, and essentially I'm sort of looking at everything as library and museums, and I would be really happy if we could spend some money where federal dollars have all been removed in the last month. And I support both of the recreation projects. So that's Boggy Meadow Trail. I'd be excited to see that rebuild. And I do support the Mainsfield Resilience phase 2 of that project. As a commission, we saw that not as a phase 1 and a phase 2 project, but as a package with an effort to try to come up with an appropriate plan of use for one of our most popular field areas, which is Mains Field. When we separated it, it wasn't that it jumped necessarily by itself to 10,000, but by not packaging these two things together, we saw an increase in cost as well as a packet separation increase in money. I would really love to see us assist in making that happen so that we can come up with a really good plan for a high use recreation area in Northampton. And I think that's all. Yeah, that's it. I think I covered everything. Mostly supportive. I think it's a good round. I would always wish it was a less expensive round, but we have money to give to worthy projects, and we have some worthy projects.
Thanks, Julia. Chris Tay?
Hey, good evening. Thank you. I too fully support the Lead School Playground project. That would be my number one priority in this round. I support bonding it. I think we could probably pay a portion of it direct and bond the remainder if we have the funds to do that. My rough math tells me we could maybe kick 200,000 towards the Lead School Playground and then bond the remainder and still cover everything else in this round. I like the Clap House project. I didn't support splitting Mainsfield the last round. I think, again, we should fund it or else the costs are just going to go up the next time it comes across our table here. I think these are all worthy projects. My only general comment is I'm disappointed that, at least as presented here, they all basically are like 100% CPA requests. Because again, I like the idea of the CPA as being kind of a, a starter fund for some of these things, and not the full ask, but I still think they're all worthy. So that's my take.
Thanks, Chris. Jeff?
Sure. I certainly support bonding the Leeds playground project and agree with what Kevin started off with, that if we were to do that, we can basically fund everything else. That said, I like the historic Northampton proposal a lot. I like the cemetery restoration. I think that's a no-brainer. On the Ruggles thing, I like the Ruggles Center a lot. I'm wondering if we might have a condition of funding to revisit the ADA, assuming that's legal, and Sarah can tell us if we can do something like that. I too have questions about Mainsfield, but probably not enough to not support it. The DAR to me is a noteworthy cause. What have I left out? Laurel Park, the conservation applications, I'm fine with those. I think, as somebody said earlier, these are all really, it was a good round of applications, and I generally agree with that. So I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Jeff. Devin?
Hi, all. I'm going to offer a couple of comments about Leeds School, but I want to put it in context to start off to say I'm in favor of the project. But I had some previous history with doing school playgrounds. We've done Bridge Street, Jackson Street, now Ryan Road, and now Leeds. And I think if you just went to O'Brien and said a wish list of what you wanted in the playground and didn't constrain them, you're going to get $600,000 or $700,000 ticket items. The other thing I think about this is, in an earlier time, city central services would be taking care of school projects. So all that to say, I'm torn a little bit about the ticket item on it, but I am in favor of doing the Leeds School Playground, and I am in favor of bonding it. And I like Chris's idea of let's not bond any more than we just have to. The other projects, I was negative about Mainsfield last time, and I still am. I feel it's an engineering problem, not a community activity design, a engagement with the community. It doesn't seem to be at the right stage for that. I'm affected by the conversations that we've had on Transportation and Parking Commission about the culverts and the shape of that road that the river's been eating away at. And deciding that you want the park to behave in a certain way doesn't mean that it will. You first have to engineer the Mill River not to do what it's doing to it, and figure out a way around that. So it still looks like that there are technical problems that need to get settled before we start talking about the usability of the community. I'm in agreement with the rest of you. I like the rest of the package. It is an expensive DAR project. I think we'll have some more discussion tonight about whether we do the full project or two-phase of the project. And that's it. I am in favor of bonding because that would get us through all the little projects.
Thank you, Devin. Lemmy?
Thanks. I just want to start off by saying, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. There's a bear and two cubs outside my window that have been there for 2 hours, and it's so cute. And they're like practicing climbing trees. And so I'm very biased towards the boggy meadow because wildlife is incredible. And I live kind of near that area. I live on Barrett Street, so it's like not exactly Fitzgerald, but it's on that. Feels close. And yeah, so I have some concerns about Laurel Park just because I think the public versus private property feels a little blurry, and I wish the association was funding more. Like, we're funding so much of it when I think there's a disproportionate benefit to the people who live there, especially if adding historic value. Like, I think there's a possibility for increasing property value, which I totally want for everybody, but yeah, I just think it's a project that isn't necessarily as for the Boggy Meadow, it's more universally accessible, whereas Laurel Park, the benefit feels a little disproportionate. Still worthwhile, but that's how I feel about Laurel Park. I liked what Chris was saying basically about trying to offer as much upfront to leads to minimize bonding, but ultimately feel fine about bonding that. Mainsfield, I understand the concerns about the technical issues, and if humans were perfectly rational, I would possibly agree, but I don't. I think that getting community buy-in, and I think community participation in projects is more complex than having all the science, then going to the community with the science, and then I think getting them involved earlier and having it be unfold collaboratively. But I do understand the concerns. Community involvement feels fraught generally, but that's not gonna be solved here at the CPC. So yeah, and then I think for the most part, all the other projects seem fine to me. I'm a little bit curious about, I'm always very curious about all the historic projects and how to think about what we're preserving and how and why, and curious about who all the people were on the gravestones, but I don't think that's all the more reason to preserve them. So yeah, I don't think, sorry, I had the tab up with the list and now I lost it, and I'm not gonna waste everyone's time finding the tab. So pass.
Thank you, Lemmy. I'll go. I feel like we could, well, let me start with a question for Sarah. What Chris Tate said, Sarah, about can we use with the lead school project, can we spend some of our money on that and then bond the rest? That's a doable thing. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Because it does concern me how much money we have that we're bonding right now. I mean, we have two major projects that haven't even kicked in yet, which is JFK and the Ryan Road Playground. And that's quite over $1.5 million. We have two big projects that we're still working on, which is Bean Allard Farm. That's going way back, and Pulaski, which is going way back as well. So to have four major projects that we're still bonding, it makes me anxious to be borrowing money to be bonding another project when we really don't know what the economy is doing, I guess, but we don't know. We'll never know what the economy is doing. So that makes me a little anxious about bonding that. I'm in fully support of the project. I just and I know costs are going to go up the longer we wait. I wonder if there's lessons that we learn from going ahead with the build of the Ryan Road playground that would then be useful in thinking about the Leeds playground. And I guess and I hate to say, as I think the only person on the committee with a physical disability, that I'm the one that's hesitant about bonding a disabled kid's playground. What can possibly be said about that? But if we are to do that, I guess I would like to see us try to reduce costs so we could pay as much as possible for that. And I do think that we could look at Clap House as two different phases. Um, I don't think that the kitchen being accessible is I think that is a phase we could tease out and do and put off, and that would save us $100,000. My heart goes out to Lemmy, who plays softball, maybe other sports at Mains Field, but I do think that the phase one, I don't understand how to proceed with phase two until we know what phase one is. And I would certainly be in favor of maybe putting that one off as well. The Laurel Park documentation is another thing I think we could put off. If we did those three things, that's 100,000 out of Clap House, 70,000 Mains Field, 30,000 Laurel Park. That's 200,000 more if we were to go ahead with the Leeds playground. Well, that's 200,000 that we're not bonding. And that's appealing to me. It's just, I guess this borrowing just makes me anxious. Uh, so that's it for me. Sarah, can you tell us your thoughts or your knowledge of what we have coming down the pike in fiscal year 2026 in the next cycle that we're going to be looking at? I know that you think there's some
Yeah.
big ticket items coming. Is that correct?
Not really known at this point. Potentially there's an open space acquisition. But there's a lot of other balls in the air, maybe with projects that aren't quite ready to move forward yet or aren't quite ready to be public. So that's the only one I know for sure is a likely open space acquisition.
What about the historic, I'm sorry, the affordable housing project right next to City Hall?
Oh, the Crafts Avenue, yeah, so they are anticipating coming forward soon. I'm not sure if it would be the next round or the following.
And that would be a major ask, correct?
Yeah, that would be construction funding for the project.
Okay. And what about the old church that the city bought for the right there across from the Academy of Music?
Not known at this point whether that would be moving forward or for how much.
And that would be a significant ask for historic preservation, correct?
Potentially it could be, but we don't know at this point.
Okay. So we really have a lot of unknowns. So we really don't know.
Yeah, and typically between the spring round and the fall round, we don't have as much of a handle because it is more of a gap and it's a different fiscal year, and especially with the federal funding picture being what it is, that may impact potential grant applications.
Can you speak a little more about that? Are there clawbacks that you're seeing in any of these projects?
Not these, but tax credit pictures could potentially be changing. Some other grants that organizations were looking at might potentially change or be reduced or eliminated, but that's not known at this point.
Okay, thanks. Any further thoughts that people have before we go project by project? Or any questions for Sarah? Martha, do you want to talk? Oh, hold on, was that a hand there somewhere? Yeah, Lemmy.
Yeah, maybe I could just wait till we actually talk about the project, I think, actually.
Okay. Martha, do you want to talk about you said you were going to wait until we talk, but do you want to talk about your concerns with the Ruggles Center and some of the um, disability issues and you were really wise to bring up the parking issue. As someone who uses a wheelchair occasionally, I have a walker and a wheelchair. Getting out of a car if it's parked right next to another car with a wheelchair is certainly problematic. And for that not to have been part of the plan, I was troubled by that and thankful that you brought up that issue. Do you have other concerns you want to talk about?
I think that, yeah, you stated it. The ADA requires that a handicap parking space be 8 feet wide and usually 18 feet long, sometimes 20. And there needs to be a 5-foot loading zone next to it so that the driver, passenger can get in and out. And there was just nothing in the plan that was presented that showed that. And also I was concerned about just how cars got in and into that space that was proposed on the plan. So the plan there was problematic. And then I didn't think there was very clear what we call base information. So there weren't really elevations on it. So I couldn't, as a design professional, assess whether this ADA increasing or improving the access was actually necessary or it was being done correctly. Now, I will say, I don't know that that's our role in this. It's not really clear to me. I mean, I look at it because this is what I do every day, but I, because I said, I think the project is very important and it's something that needs to be done there. I just want to see that it's done right and that the city's dollars are being used responsibly. So.
So we do have the architect here, or one of the architects, and I think generally we keep our discussion to committee members, but in this case, Tris, if you want to, you have your hand up, and I think I will reserve the right to call on you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I got my audio. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, no, the prior meeting, it was good. Martha discovered the problem that we were left with the developer of the property. But the new plan, have you seen the new plan? The revised plan? The parking space has been moved over to the other side of the lot, and it has a more than 5-foot space next to it. It's a normal perpendicular parking space directly across from the ramp. You haven't seen that?
We got a revised budget for the project, but we
Yeah, well,
didn't.
the revised plan has been sent several times. Does anybody have it there? I mean, I should have it. If I could
Is
probably
this the one
find
you
it.
presented at the last meeting?
No, it's the one that has the ADA parking space across from the ramp on the, as you look at the drawing, on the right-hand side at the top of the drawing, right next to the sidewalk is the ADA space.
I don't
And
believe that committee members received that, Tris. Sarah, do you?
it's been sent, and let me see if I can pull it up. I mean, it's, you have it, okay, you know that.
If it came after the following meeting, I haven't seen that. It was only the revised budget.
Well, it definitely was sent, and I guess I will have to struggle here to find it. And I should be able to find it quickly, but I'm not that quick at this, unfortunately. Okay, here we go. Access. Grant.
So
Do we have it here? What are we looking
let's
at?
see, how would this work, Tris? You would send that to Sarah. Sarah, you could screen share with that? Is that
Well,
possible?
boy, I wish I could pull it up quick. Why is it not pulling up quick? Oh, 'cause I'm in the wrong.
All right, well, Tris, why don't you work on that and see if you can
Yes.
send that along to Sarah?
Yeah, I will.
Any
I
other,
apologize.
any further comments on that you have? Quick comments, Tris?
Yeah, again, that I have? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we spent in the budget and it includes the ramp. The prior budget did not have the railings as part of it, so it's there now. The parking space problem was the problem with the prior design, and that's been solved. Everything is pretty much level now. There's no step involved getting to the main entrance, and so we're going to have to add a step to the front of the building because it's lowering everything down to that ramp level, which is a step up from and a short ramp, 6 foot, 6-inch rise ramp from the parking. I'm mumbling here. Let me find the drawing and I can show you better with the drawing.
okay, thank you, Tris. Martha, any other comments from you?
No, I just asked whether the new budget that was submitted would reflect the addition of the loading, the 5-foot wide loading zone, as I didn't, I mean, the budget was reduced, so I wasn't sure whether the whole parking area was being restriped or you were going to be adding a 5-foot strip that would then involve some kind of a compacted base and then asphalt on top of that, which is an expense, and then and striping also. So just budget clarification.
The budget included regrading for the new handicap parking space. The surface is budgeted as maintained as the gravel that's there existing. Just increasing the amount that's there, the area.
Okay, thank you, Tris.
Yep.
Any other clarifications that committee members need from the Ruggles folks about accessibility issues or any other, Devin?
I've got that budget at 26.2. Is that the right number?
That has come down with what Sarah sent us as a revised budget. And it's come down instead to 17,400.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions that folks have regarding that issue, committee members? Okay, so we'll just continue thinking about that. Lemmy, you want to talk about that and also share whatever you had said you wanted to share.
Oh, I actually had a clarification for this, but I wanted to ask, so is the expectation that it would unload onto gravel? Did I get, I'm so not a spatially reasonable person, but does that mean that they would be navigating gravel in a wheelchair? Like, is that because I think I share that seems concerning to me too, that that's not accessible to think that someone could get out of a car and navigate a wheelchair independently through gravel. So I just want to make sure that's what I'm understanding. That's why there's not an increased expenses with all gravel. I haven't been to the Ruggles Center.
Well, a compacted dense grade is an ADA surface. So if that's what the proposal is, then that would be ADA regulations. But I don't know what it is because I haven't seen the plan either.
Yeah, we have not seen what that parking plan is. Tris?
Yeah, I just sent the plan to Sarah again, so she has it now in her email.
Tris, I didn't receive it before. It may have been in that file that I wasn't able to open.
Well, I definitely sent it. And we can discuss, and it is compacted gravel. as you'll see.
Sarah, is that something you're able to screen share while we're sticking with this Ruggles Center proposal? Or should we come back to you?
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
There it is. You can see it. In the upper right is the ADA space, and there's compacted gravel all the way to the sidewalk, plus the sidewalk, all level to the sidewalk.
So to the right of the parking area is the sidewalk.
Yes,
And that is the sidewalk that brings you into the accessible doorway.
well, the city sidewalk is on your far right of the drawing, upper right, all the way down the right-hand side of the drawing is city sidewalk. And the compacted gravel is all that level. In fact, the sidewalk at the driveway isn't concrete, it's compacted gravel.
Great, good. I'm glad that has been sent to us. Martha, a quick look with your professional expertise at this and comments from you. Putting you on the spot.
Well, yeah, a little bit. It's okay. So what are the dimensions of that space, Tristan?
They're 9 feet by 18.
Okay, so the ADU space only needs to be 8 feet wide, and the loading zone needs to be 5 feet. And it
Well,
should be a
there's-
stable surface. I mean, gravel and hard pack are two different things. You know, and is there,
It's a TRG stone product that,
yeah, TRG is not a stable
well, I'm not
surface.
sure exactly what it is. It's a type of TRG. What's been there for quite a few years, well, since the beginning, actually.
But, okay. But it's not been in compliance since the beginning, right? That's what partly what you're doing here is trying to bring this into compliance, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments, Martha?
You know, I guess one thing that I would want to know is whether so you have to get a permit to build this, correct?
We will get a permit.
So have you reviewed this at all with the building inspector?
Have
Because I would imagine they would have comments about this, because for example, the loading zone is, you know, being put on city property. I don't know whether that's allowed or not. According to this plan, that's city property.
Yeah.
So it still raises some concerns for me.
Any other committee members want to comment on this drawing while we have it up? I can't see hands, so
I'll
people
jump
just
in.
speak up.
I'll jump in. So yeah, I think the city property issue, thank you for raising that, Martha. That was something also I hadn't considered. I think that that's something we need to be confident about. And I definitely want some clarification as to whether or not the proposed material is in fact an improvement and is in fact compliant. Because there's no point in doing this if it's not going to be fully compliant at this point. So we want to make sure we're doing it. We want to make sure we're doing it correctly.
Thanks, Chris. Any other committee members want to comment on this? Okay, Sarah, can you, oh, Lemmy has a hand up. Lemmy.
Yeah, I just want to say I would support, like, I don't know if this matters at all, but I think there's like some aspect of volunteer stuff that went into this, and I really appreciate that. And I also would be willing to support funding a more expensive proposal if it meant paying someone who could provide some things. So I don't want to, undercut anybody's amazing work or whatever, but I just think if that's part of what's going on, and I'm not sure that it is, I would support funding, a more intense study or something like that. And that's all I want to say, I guess.
Great. Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you. I'd just like to add a little perspective to this project. The original intent of this application was to address problems that exist at the bottom of the existing ramp, the transition points, and the fact that there is a step on the concrete pathway from the public sidewalk. And twice within the past year, we have had issues with people trying to make that, not being able to make that transition. And these were not people who arrived to use the handicap space. And I'm not dismissing that at all, but the vast majority of our people who come to visit the museum are on school tours, and they come on accessible vehicles, and they're unloaded on the sidewalk, or if possible, they pull in off the road. But that's what we were trying to do. I take Martha's point, but that was not part of our original intent. So that is something that was raised by the committee, which obviously Trish has tried to address. But if that is a sticking point now, what it's going to do is it's going to postpone our ability to do any work there, at least until the next round of funding, which is more than a half year. And we were anxious to get this done and get it done as soon as possible, so that we can eliminate the problems that we have experienced with accessibility.
Thanks for that comment. Do committee members have any other questions for Tris or Kevin? And then we will go back into committee members' discussion.
I guess I have a general question. I'm a little confused at like what our role or our purview is on this board as we're approving these projects. I mean, we're armchair designing these projects for the professionals that are hired and requesting money? Is that kind of our purview here? I just feel like if this is going to be something that's going to be permitted with the city, then the city is going to go through its permitting process to approve these things. So like, what are we doing here really?
I think, Chris, we have always struggled with that. How much do we micromanage, and what our role is? So your point is a good one, and there's no.
I will say from my reading of the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, it seems like parking lots with less than 15 parking spaces don't require an accessible space. So I'm not sure that an accessible space is a requirement. I could be wrong, but I'd leave that for the design professionals. I think an accessible space should be provided, but I don't know that one's required.
I think that is true, Chris. I think that the Ruggles Center was wanting to do this though. And my point is that if it's going to be built, it needs to be compliant. And my concern is, I know, as I stated myself, I think it's confusing what our role is here. I don't want to redesign this project, but I also don't, again, want to be putting city money towards something that it's not clear to me whether this meets the guidelines or not. So.
Anything else for Tris or Kevin while we have them? Okay, so Any other general comments or questions? Chris, I think we're gonna try to move on to committee deliberation. Do you have something quick to
Yeah,
finalize?
something quick. The question of the loading zone on public land, we could just switch the position between that space and the next one over. We added a space, so we could even eliminate a space. We could easily create the space. And the surface is compliant and it does work. And we've made improvements, gotten rid of a step. We've made it wheelchair accessible. Many wheelchairs come from other parking lots using the sidewalk coming across the street. And so it's really, we just want to be able to get wheelchairs up into the building. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so here we go. Let's begin, and let's begin with again, we're back to this shopping cart thing that we're doing of making motions to put into a shopping cart. And that can be revisited at the end when we are in the checkout line. So why not? Let's start with the Ruggles Center accessibility project. They initially asked for $26,800. That has come down to $17,400. Is there a motion to move that project into the shopping cart?
I will
Devin
move
makes that
to,
motion.
So
And
I
I will
heard
second.
Devin and Kevin with a second. Further discussion, which can include conditions as well that we would put on this project.
I'm not after a condition, but I'm trusting in the permitting process to straighten out any concerns.
I agree.
Martha?
I said initially that I was, this was one of my favorites. I was very appreciative of the amount of volunteer effort that went behind it. And I lack any technical know-how about the design, but it seemed rational to me. It seemed logical. And as Devin said, I was expecting that if it in fact is to move forward, the city would have to permit it properly.
Martha?
Uh, Boy, I still have questions about it. I do think it's an important project. I do. I just would want, and I don't know if it's a condition, but would want to be reassured that someone who understands what's required there is looking at this and correcting it as needed. So maybe that's a permitting process. I don't know. Hopefully that would do it. So I'm not in favor of not funding it. I would like to see it happen. I just want it to be done right.
As a disabled man, gravel is not my friend, whether I'm in the walker or the wheelchair. Compact is always better for accessing places. Parking is important to me. I judge my ability to get in, not just being able to get into a structure, but my ability to park with space where I can get out and maneuver around. And so that aspect of parking is important. I appreciate that we don't want to let the perfect get in the way of the good. In this case, if it means making sure that folks can access the site through the walkway, and that's certainly important. Let's see. Someone refresh my memory. How have we done this on roll call? Do we do a roll call to get into the shopping cart? Is that what we've been doing? Let me start off with you first.
Yeah, I just was wondering if we could add a condition that there's consultation with the ADA coordinator in the city. I think it's Keith, right? Is it possible to say that there's just some discussion with someone who isn't familiar with these things? And again, I'm not trying to micromanage anyone either. I'm just like a community organizer, and my standard is like, is this better than nothing usually? And I understand why the impetus might be yes, but doing something in the name of access that doesn't actually provide access, I think, is not better than doing nothing. So I'm not sure if this will, it's just a drawing right now. I don't think there's really understanding, and I understand as projects come up, oh, we hit a water line, oh, I don't know, all the things that can come up that cause accessibility issues, and I just would love to see someone who's, I can fully trust, like, understands all the nuances of access is on the project. That's all. And I'm not trying to micromanage. I'm not confident right now. That's all. And I don't know what to do with that. Because I want the Ruggles Center to be accessible. And there is an ADA coordinator in the city, perhaps. I don't know if we'd have to pay for his time or something. I know this is a novel requirement, but I'm just curious if we could tap.
Sarah, can you
No,
can
it's
you
not.
weigh in on that, Sarah?
Yeah, Keith's role doesn't really extend to private buildings. So and given that this is a really detailed schematic that involves elevations and things that might not be evident, it might be more appropriate to refer to it, so maybe an engineer later in the process, or depending.
Okay. And I guess to answer Chris Tate's questions, this micromanaging, again, it's a constant issue. How much do we get involved in the weeds? And in this case, we can set conditions, and we can and we're not telling people what to do, but making sure that it's done by someone, or telling someone to tell someone what to do, I guess. So let's see, I'm hearing a tentative yes from Martha, right? And Lemmy with a yes. I think Kevin was a yes. Devin was a yes. Jeff, a thumbs up. Julia,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
okay, so all of us putting it into the shopping cart, and specific conditions, maybe we can deal with at the end. And I mean, I think we've come up with some general ideas, but we can get back to that. Okay, so while we're on the accessibility issues, let's move on to Clap House. Might as well get through these. And again, the Clap House did come up with sort of a budget that had two different phases. The phase one, getting access into the building and a new bathroom. And phase two was actually redoing the kitchen. Uh, Anyone want to comment on that before we make a motion to put into the shopping cart?
I got a question more than a comment. In your mind, Brian, the two phase, are we talking about we're going to approve, we're thinking about A, approving both at one time, or B, approving one and then asking for a resubmit on phase two?
That would be an option. I mean, that's certainly an option.
Well, because I guess the genesis of my question is two phases doesn't save us any money if we're approving the whole thing right now. So it almost sounds like we're asking them to do a resubmit for the second phase if we decide to bifurcate the project.
Yes. I think that's what we would be asking. So I think those that were there were in favor of the bathroom, but again, I have concerns about not wanting to bond too much. And if we can reduce our bonding obligation by $100,000, I would certainly consider having that second phase come in at a later time. Any other general comments about the DAR application? So again, we have the option to not fund, to fund in two phases, to fund entirely, and also always to put off. Does anyone want to make a motion on this? Chris Tate.
I move to fund the first phase only.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, that was Jeff with a second. So the first phase will be $248,743, and that would be getting folks in and doing a bathroom into the different rooms. Just not, I think people get disabled folks get into the kitchen, or just using the kitchen would present some would not be fully ADA accessible. So we have a motion for partial funding, 2/3 of the funding for the DAR project. Before we go through voting on that, any additional discussion that folks want to have? If
So
we
Brian,
were-
yep, sorry. I may have misunderstood this, but my recollection when we were at the site, um, was that it was stated that in order to achieve full ADA compliance, the kitchen had to be done as well. That there was something about the ADA that required the entirety, in order to get to full compliance, the entirety of the project had to ultimately be approved. Did I misunderstand that entirely? And if I didn't, is that in fact accurate?
who else
Do you
was?
remember hearing that?
No, I don't remember hearing
Right.
that.
Then let's not use it as gospel if I can't verify.
Well, the fact that I don't remember hearing it has nothing to do with anything, Chris. Who else?
I don't recall it.
You don't recall that either, Joe?
Good.
No, I think the
Right.
major emphasis was getting visitors in the door.
I agree.
Devin,
I just wanted to make sure I didn't misunderstand what was being said to me. So thank you.
Devin, your recollection?
None.
Agree.
Chris,
All
couldn't
right.
you put in the bathroom?
No,
Not the
no,
kitchen? No, okay.
No, it's
yeah,
the kitchen.
no, that would at least make sense. So let's go with that.
And again, I feel like I'm playing the disabled card more than I ever have on these projects. When I visit a place, the two things I look at is, one, can I get in the door? And two, can I use the bathroom? I do not look and think, oh my God, I can't cook. I'm not coming here. And I don't mean to be flip or facetious about it, but it's the access. It's those two things that are most on my mind. Okay, so any other discussion about this? If committee members, we can vote against this partial funding because people want full funding. So we have that as an option. I think someone correct me, Sarah, we could vote for this, and then someone could make another motion that we vote for full funding as well. Is that correct?
Like competing motions at the same time?
Or a motion to partially fund and then another motion to fully fund? Or how do we do this? Somebody help me.
Yeah, and you
Brian,
could
if-
act on this motion and then someone could make another motion.
Yeah, if this motion fails, then we would go to the alternate motion.
Okay. So we are
Or-
voting
or-
now on I think it was Chris Hellman, right?
Nope, it was Chris Tate. But
Chris Tate.
I want to just go back to the previous statement. Is it only if it fails that we can vote on full funding? Because I then maybe we should reverse the order of the motions and do full funding first and back it down if that doesn't pass.
You'd have to modify, you'd have to amend this, you'd have to make an amendment to this motion. We'd have to vote on the amendment and then we'd vote on the main motion.
Okay. All right.
Too
And-
much
and it
Robert's
is the-
rules.
And it is the shopping cart as well. So in the past, sometimes things have been shifted.
There could be a second motion to approve the second phase, which would then give you the whole amount. How about that? And this is just going on the shopping cart anyway, so.
Right.
All right.
Nice solution,
Let's do it.
Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's vote on the motion on hand that Chris Tate made, which is to partially fund at 248,743. Sarah, you want to take us through a roll call?
Sure. So roll call on the partial funding for the phasing, getting to my list to keep us on to miss anyone. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
I'd like to fully fund it, so should I vote yes and then redo it? Okay, yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Julia,
I was going to vote no, so we could have a second motion to fully fund. So I guess I vote half. You know, yes to this and yes to the next.
yes, that's a yes.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
So the first phase is fully in the shopping.
First phase.
Okay, put the second phase to vote into the shopping cart.
Okay, so Julia's made a motion for an additional 100,458 to fund the kitchen goes into the shopping cart.
And I second that.
Second by Martha. Further discussion on that?
I have a couple things to say. I just thought this was a very well thought through proposal, and I thought that they had very good support at our public appearance session. And I do think if it's put off, the kitchen is put off, it's going to be quite a lot more expensive. So I just would like to see it completed and fully supported.
Any other discussion?
So just to be clear on the amount, it would be the difference between the 248 that was as part of the first phase and the 316,553.
But to be clear, this second amount would come out of the next round, not this round? I'm trying to understand what we're actually doing if we're not.
The motion is to we have put the sort of the first phase into the shopping cart. This motion now is to put the second phase in as well. So both of these phases would come out of this round.
And my thinking for just funding the first phase and not the second was so we would have more money to put towards the Leeds playground and not bond as much of the Leeds playground.
Right,
So
that was my
kind of my
understanding.
thought process following what Brian had kind of suggested previously.
Yes, that was my thought. Oh, just so that we could bond less. Kevin, does that answer your question?
It seems I don't understand the distinction between funding the whole thing and funding both halves.
Well, we've agreed to put in the shopping cart a half. Now we're going to vote whether we want the other half into the shopping cart. Does that make sense?
So funding the whole thing this round is what this vote would be.
Right, so
Yeah.
we would
And
not
that would
save
be
any money.
Yeah, so that would be the 316,553 that was requested in the application. But if the DAR did include an additional contingency by breaking it into phases, so there is a cost savings there. So instead of adding 100,000, you'd be adding 67,810.
And I would hope that we would encourage them, if that was to happen, to reapply in the fall round, because I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't really support the project overall. This is a question of bonding versus cash on hand.
So just to be clear, to maximize the amount we would, to minimize the amount we would have to bond for the playground when we get to that, would require voting no, let's not fund the second half this round.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, thank
Unless
you.
people were voting no just because they didn't like the kitchen being
Yes.
ADA accessible. That's another
But I
option.
just want to add in, though, the benefit of using our little shopping cart methodology is that all we're doing is we're putting this into the shopping cart in two halves.
Mhm.
When we then go to checkout, to use Brian's lovely little metaphor here, we could just check out the first half and leave the second half still in the cart for someone to put back on the shelf. And then maybe it comes up on our shelf in the fall.
Thank you. Helpful.
Correct. Thank you. Any other discussion on this second round of the DAR, putting the 100,000 into the kitchen request? Okay, Sarah?
So roll call vote on the second phase. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Kevin,
No.
Julia,
Yes.
Jeff,
No.
Devin,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
No.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
No.
Motion carries 5-4.
Okay, so into the shopping cart, both phases. With a interesting vote. Okay, moving right along. Let's see. Let's stay on accessibility and look at the Boggy Meadow Trail. Just a quick reminder that we have, and I can remember, when was it, Sarah, that we voted for the planning phase of that? Was that a year ago, 3 rounds ago?
A year
now
ago, or one of those, either a year ago or 3.
And now we are on to the implementation component of that. So that's our second biggest project coming in. No, I'm sorry, our third biggest project coming in, $248,000. Any discussion before we begin voting on that? This has the full backing of the conscom, Kevin?
Pardon me?
This has the full backing of the Conservation Commission.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, without discussion, is there a motion for full funding of the Boggy Meadow Trail accessibility?
So moved by
Also,
Devin.
So that was a Devin yes and a Martha
I'll second
second.
it. Yeah.
Any further discussion moving this into the shopping cart? Sarah?
So roll call vote. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I think maybe we'll just do lead school as the last one, even though that's sort of within the accessibility realm, obviously. But let's put that off. And instead move down the list to historic Northampton, coming in at $91,065 for the clothing conservation project. Is there discussion on that before we get to vote? Everybody is good to go? Okay. What would the historic Northampton do without the Community Preservation Commission? That's what I would like to know. Sarah?
All right. So who was the motion in the second on that one?
I'm sorry. There was no motion or
No,
second.
that's why I'm confused. Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion for the historic Northampton project?
So moved.
Jeff?
And second.
Kevin, second. Thank you. Sarah?
Now a roll call. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes. Into the shopping cart it goes. That $91,065. All right, going down the list, Mansfield Flood Resilience Phase 2. We have fully funded Phase 1. Sarah, where are they in that project?
I believe they have contracted with Fuss and O'Neill for that work and it is underway.
So they have contracted, and is there a date on completion?
I don't have an estimated completion date on that.
Okay. So this was one that elicited, I think, some differences of opinion between committee members. I think mainly the concern was, do we move forward with Phase 2 when Phase 1 has not begun yet? And does the proposal of Phase 2, is that contingent on what Phase 1 finds out? Further discussion on this project before we vote on it. People want to weigh in. Kevin?
I guess my question is, if we were to approve Phase 2, and then Phase 1 comes back with a number of constraints that there are certain limitations given the site about what's possible. I'm still a little unclear about who would make the call about whether a full community charrette like that actually can work as if it's working with a blank slate. And I think it's an important project and I want to see it go ahead, but I'm not sure the charrette that with the community having equal voice to the science and engineering part, it seems like no, that it's got to be sequenced, and I want it to happen, and I don't know that it's beneficial. It already has gone up by delaying part of it, but it's not clear to me what the constraints are going to be on the charrette process, on the public process.
Julia, could you help us out with that?
Yeah, Kevin, can you clarify to me what you're asking? I mean, I don't think that the concept behind, I shouldn't say I don't think. The concept behind the charrette has nothing to do with allowing the public to overrule any of the science or any of the information that we get from the Phase 1. What we're going to get from the Phase 1 are the limits, the existing limits and the conditions, and using that condition information, we would have a series of design possibilities for a new mains field. We know we need a new mains field. Those design possibilities and different design elements which can be pieced together in different ways would all be presented to the public. There would be meetings. We're going to be putting up some types of signage in and around the park itself with QR codes so that people can come in and see what the park might look like with each of the different design elements, and we'd be getting public opinion about all of the possibilities of design to try to make some decisions about which ones are the move forward pieces. So it's not that the public could come in and say, we don't like the science, what we really want is that old lighted field with the softball diamond that we've had forever and ever. It's really about reconceptualizing it and doing this in a way that we've seen some other communities do when they have fields that are now facing some flooding issues. And there's been some really remarkable work on recreational field use in the face of flooding and different ways of mitigating those problems. So does that help a little bit?
Well, that does help. Thank you, Julia. So in essence, there would be um, a range of options available that define the content of the public debate.
Yes. Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
And each of them in light of what we know from the engineering analysis and what we know about the ways in which park redesign has occurred around flooding, and that's happened, you know, in cities and towns in all kinds of flood-prone areas.
So Julia, the goal isn't to tame the river and make it not flood the park anymore. The goal is to reimagine a park that can work with an occasionally flooding river.
Exactly. Yep.
Julia, there's no goal in trying to mitigate flooding, like planting trees or
There'll be some goal
river.
around, yeah, there'll be some mitigation goal, but you know, we're looking at it as a reality that we have a beautiful park that's been there for many, many years, but it's been built in an area where flooding happens. And so we'll do some mitigation efforts and then some efforts to build elements of a park that can be built around flooding. Sorry, I think my video keeps freezing. Sorry about that. I'm having unstable Wi-Fi.
A couple of other folks expressed reservations about the timing of the Mainsfield proposal. And I can't remember who folks were, but who else would like to speak about that? Devin, were you one?
Well, it wasn't so much timing, but I guess I question, what are you going to do if Fuss and O'Neill come back to you and say, you can't have a field here? It just won't hold up to the flooding that you're going to hit. Then I'm thinking, you're enticing the public to suggest options for the park that are not possible.
Yeah. So I'm sort of pausing on that because we don't anticipate that we're going to hear we can't have a field. It might be, like, I'm not saying this is an absolute. So nobody who plays softball come marching to my house and knock down my door. But it might be that we can't have a softball field there anymore. But there may be other recreational uses. And so then it becomes the game of, well, if we can't have a softball field there, can we move this type of recreational use down to that area and still manage that area with, you know, an alternate use and move softball somewhere else in the city? It's, you know, it's about weighing all of the field uses and locations that we have to get them to maximize recreation. We don't think what we're going to hear is that that field is unusable for any recreation at all.
We're talking about the road being unstable. We can't even get the culvert stabilized, and you drive up and down that road and it is a mess.
Yeah.
Brandon,
I'm worried about what you will find out from the engineering report, and I guess I'm asking, what harm would there be to get that report, and really let's talk about where to go with it once we see it.
I mean, no, and I'll agree, no harm. I mean, the harm is always time and increasing costs. And we would love, you know, we'd love to position ourselves, if there's a possibility that we can do some work within that field, we'd love to position ourselves for, if they continue to happen, some of the state grants on recreation and space. So, you know, that really requires public input.
Martha?
Julia, has there been any discussion or even thought or anticipation that it's possible that the use of this property might be better serve the city, the neighborhood, the road, if it had a different use rather than being a field, meaning like flood storage, or I don't know if that has ever come up or not. I know the intent is to keep the field in some form, but I'm just wondering if that was ever considered.
Yeah, we haven't had that discussion. Thanks.
Lemmy?
Yeah. I think I'm thinking, there's like the science of the engineering, but there's also a lot of like social science that's going on in my brain. And even if it's like deemed like a complete wash of a field, like having public input be a part of that seems worthwhile, will minimize backlash general. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just think I understand the like fear of like getting public input before we know the answers, but I think even if it's like the whole community has to grieve the loss of this field together, like I think that's worthwhile. And I don't know. I mean, I have so many thoughts again, like systemic issues that I think are beyond the scope of this, but I think like there is social science, like I think about COVID and masking and all the science that behind like public health crisis and public health stuff generally, and how much social science there is about like community involvement and in getting the community to listen to science is a whole process. It's not just something you can explain. So I want to support that.
Have a chance for everyone to weigh in on this. Jeff?
Well, I'm basically operating with the assumption that the engineering report would come down and then the phase 2 meeting would take place and we'd be operating with whatever those results are. And that meeting wouldn't be held before the engineering report came down. So I'm I'm supportive of going that route, and then let's see what we get. And then I'll leave it there.
Chris Hellman, I don't think you've weighed in on this.
I appreciate in particular the thoughts of Chris and Julia. They were the ones who persuaded me the first go round to support the program in its entirety. But I'm still having trouble getting past the idea that we can have a meaningful visioning about that facility without a better understanding of the science. I don't think that people are going to be able to have a meaningful conversation about life at Mainsfield without a softball field, as long as they hold out hope for the possibility that there's going to be a softball field. And so I still think it needs to be sequential. I'm supportive of funding it, provided the timing works. And right now it doesn't sound like it does, but if it does, I'll support it.
Julia?
Yeah, Chris, to clarify, this is sequential, right? We're going to get the report, and then we're going to work with the charrette and the public process. So the report informs what happens.
If that's the timeline, I'm good. Yeah, if that's the timeline, I'm good.
Martha, have you weighed in on this?
I'm sympathetic to what Devin's saying. I spent a lot of time on that road and I know how unstable it is. And I think that I asked the question of Julia I guess, has there been any thought or expectation or anticipation that the report might come back saying you really can't use this for public recreation, it needs to have another use in the community, and whether that would be something that the users could stomach. But I think the public engagement process is important. I think it's critical. And I guess what I'm thinking after hearing all of this, that it's likely that we would fund it eventually anyway. Even if the Fusiliers come back to say, well, this might be better served as like a wetland area, and you could, just a place where people could go bird watching, and then, there would be some visioning about how that gets created as more as a interactive wetland with interpretive signage and bird watching stations and birdhouses and et cetera, et cetera. That's just a kind of loony idea, but you never know. That could be it. And that might be the best use of it, not just to avoid flooding, but to preserve some of the other problems or address some of the other problems that Dem is talking about downstream. I don't know. So I guess this is all to say, I'm sort of convinced that this process is going to happen at some point anyway. And that I wouldn't be opposed to funding it now, maybe to save a little money. If we don't, because we postpone it, it'll probably go up more money. It'll be more money. And just assume that it's going to happen, and that Fussin O'Neill, whoever's doing this, and the Recreation Committee, are flexible enough in restructuring the engagement appropriately, given what the results of the study are and what the real possibilities might be. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Kevin Lake, have you had a chance?
Well, I'll just circle back around to say that I understood Julia to say exactly that, Martha, that in fact, after the initial phase, there will be understandable constraints presented, and that therefore options will not be blank slate. They will be, well, you can do a little of this, or you can do a little bit. You can't do any of this. And that given those constraints, then I'm more comfortable saying, sure, then a charrette could be useful.
Yeah, and
Maybe as-
especially if it's approached where, if there is that reality presented, that it's really problematic as a recreation park, that it could be as an opportunity, that it's not, oh, well, we're done, we'll just, we're never going to use this place again. That it becomes an opportunity for the city to use it in a different kind of, for a different kind of public use.
And I'm also anticipating whatever comes up in the future is going to come back. It's a floodplain and it's within 200 feet of it's going to come back to Conscom at some point for permitting for whatever the new work is going to be.
Chris Tate, did you have any further comments?
Yeah, I guess just to say, number one, my understanding, just as Julia said, would be that the consultants won't do anything until they have the first phase complete. I don't think we need to wait for the first phase complete as a committee before we approve the second phase.
No, that's
I know
right.
that the
Yep.
consultants will
Right.
go through the first phase and then go through the second phase.
Yep.
But we need to be able to sign the consultants up, and then the consultants need to be able to schedule meetings with the public, and all that takes time. So, waiting for the first phase to be complete before we approve the money doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
So
No,
just say that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And the other thing is, if the results come back and it's a complete wash and you can't do anything with that land, I've seen where if projects don't spend all the money and they don't have the big visioning charrette, they give the money back to CPC. So I think that would be the absolute worst case scenario.
Yep.
I don't think that'll happen because I think they have a fairly good idea of where the floodplain is and that there is some amount of land for recreation in that park. But I'm sure they'll do their work and figure that all out and present it to the public. So those are my thoughts.
I was at a college at the University of Washington this last week in Seattle, and I was eavesdropping on a college tour being given for prospective students, and they were talking about a new game called Battleship, which evidently is, well, my understanding was dodgeball and kayaks. So I would encourage Julia to think about this as the waters rise. Can still sit there. There you go. Lemmy, I know it's not softball, but maybe it's the next thing that you can know. Okay. So there was a motion. Have we had a motion for this? No, I think we just had discussion. So and again, my thought with that I'm certainly we fully funded phase one. We should fund phase two. I'm just wondering if we could put it off and apply that 70,000 to the reduced bond, if in fact we go ahead and bond the school playground. But I'm certainly not adverse to funding it. Is there a motion for 70 to fully fund this at 70,000?
I move to do that.
That was Lemmy. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
That's second by Kevin. Into the shopping cart is the motion. Sarah?
Roll call vote. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Devin,
No.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
No. I'll go with a no on this. All right. Into the shopping cart it goes. Moving right along, we have two more to consider. How are we doing bathroom break wise? Do we need to take a moment or can we continue? Sort of an embarrassing question. Raise your hand.
I'm taking a moment, so.
Okay. How about 5 minutes? Can we do that? Yes? Okay. Back in 5. Let's see, we're still waiting for Julia. Is that everybody else is back? And here is Julia. Great. Good. Okay, we've got folks hanging in there. We're reaching our 2-hour point, but we have three projects to get through. Can we do it? Yeah, all right. Laurel Park documentation, coming in at $35,000. Discussion about that. I think a couple people had expressed some reservations. Lemmy, do you want to speak one more time? Or have you? No? Martha is our historic person. Any comments from your end?
Sure. I just, Lemmy, I think one thing you brought up about the private property issue. So the Historical Commission, as everybody knows, because you funded this, we developed a preservation plan that was finished probably 2 years ago now, and we're really trying to make an attempt to tackle a lot of the recommendations of that. And this was one of the recommendations. This is a very important piece of Northampton's history. It was an old Methodist camp meeting site. And there aren't a lot of those left or in Massachusetts. So it's sort of a rare historic resource that tells us a story of Northampton, but also the broader region. And the National Register work is only an honorary designation. It does not, it can increase property values. It can also decrease them. And some people see it as an obstacle to be able to do what they want to do with their property, which is a fallacy. So it's really an effort by the commission to try to broaden our understanding of what we have in the city. And it's one step in a larger effort just to get a handle on the vast array of historic resources we have. So that's really the purpose of it.
Thank you, Martha. Any other comments about the Laurel Park documentation project? Devin?
I just want to make sure I understand that we are only documenting the common public buildings. This is not anyone's individual house that we would be documenting. Is that true, Martha?
No, it's documenting 100 buildings within the community in that property.
So it is all of the residential houses also?
Yes, because they were part of the original camp meeting.
Yeah, I think about how wonderful it is to go to Oak Bluff and see that one. And there was one near DC where I lived there. I found myself walking there with someone from Rockridge the other day, so I can say there's a lot of community activity that goes through there. And I appreciate that you're marching through the historic plan. That's really important for me to know.
Any other comments about the Laurel Park project?
I just want to say I'm happy to support it. I just hope they make, along with the historic efforts comes like public access efforts with it, which usually I know you guys do. So I think that's all I wanted to really express. I'm not really expressing like total opposition.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve 35,000 for the Laurel Park documentation project?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Jeff. A second?
Devin, second.
Thank you. Sarah?
Right, roll call vote. Lemmy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Chris Tate,
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes. Just while I'm thinking of it, and Sarah, help make sure I'm understanding this correctly. We have only one we only have one open space project, and that is the Boggy Meadow Trail. But the recreation project, the Mains Field, also falls into that open space reserve, correct? So there's two.
Mansfield would be recreation fully. But we could use, since the Boggy Meadow Trail is within a conservation area, that could be either. So we could pull the Boggy Meadow funding from the open space reserve.
Okay, so Boggy Meadow could come from open space reserve, as could Mansfield.
Mansfield could not.
Okay, so really,
It's a quirk of the CPA.
I guess I'm looking at the open space reserve at 267,000 and the Boggy Meadow Trail coming in at 248,000. So we would have to leave somewhere around $20,000, 19,000, right?
I can verify that. That hasn't really come up before. So unless you're going to finalize everything fully tonight and be ready to go to council, I can double check on that.
Okay, because we may be actually 20,000 that we need to keep into that open space reserve account. Everybody see where I'm going with this? Yes, okay. So yeah, Sarah, if we can just put that on the back burner. Okay, moving on to Cemetery Stone Preservation Project, 98,329. Comments, questions? Martha, you want to make any comments about that? So much of this historic this round.
I have to recuse myself, Brian.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. Martha recusing herself.
Well,
Anybody else?
Yeah, Devin,
Devin.
having not understood the Laurel Park proposal completely, let me say that I did spend some time on the cemetery one, and I sent Sarah and the DPW some numbers that weren't fixing up. The totals don't match the breakout for the tables and the title of the tables. So there's a little tweaking in the presentation of how many stones are in different groups. But those were passed back to Sarah and DPW.
Yeah, and Devin, I wasn't able to fully resolve that with DPW before this meeting. But regardless of the numbers that are indicated in the table, which may have changed over time, it's those priority stones that would be
Yes,
addressed.
and you know, Sarah, all I was worried about was that the cemetery contract would pick up those numbers for restoration. And so I sent them to Cindy at the DPW and she sent it over to them.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Devin,
Devin.
sorry, Devin, does that change the bottom line on the proposal?
No, it doesn't. I think it's such a minor, it's just a matter of they've got something counted in one group and not in another. And it really, I was more worried about the contract to picking up those numbers than I was that's why I didn't even bring it up to you all. I just did it with Sarah.
Right. Well, thanks for your watchfulness on that.
Yes, Devin, thanks.
It's not always my nature. I'm sorry.
Other comments about the cemetery project? Okay, motion to put in the shopping cart at $98,329. Somebody other than Martha?
Devin will do that, but you know, we could break that up into two pieces if anyone wanted to entertain that discussion.
There would be a cost change to break this into phases because there's some significant mobilization that goes along with these projects.
Okay, I dropped that idea. I motion we put it in the shopping cart.
Thank you, Devin.
Second.
Julia, I think Julia had her sign up first. Sarah, any further discussion? So Martha, given her professional work on this, is recusing herself. Sarah, can you take us through?
Right, roll call vote. Lemmy?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Devin?
Yes.
Chris Tate?
Yes.
Chris Hellman,
Yes. Yes.
and Brian?
Yes. Great. Okay, on to our last and largest project, the Leeds School Playground, coming in 639,615. I think this perhaps deserves another go round on this. So if we can, I know it's late, but let's do that anyway. If we could go around and people say how they feel about fully funding this to bond is or not to bond, as the case may be, which would, if we were to not fully bond, we'd have to take things out of the shopping cart. If we were to fully fund it and bond it, we would not have to take things out of the shopping cart. So let's just go around and see where we're at with this. I'll just go around in the way that I see our faces. Lemmy?
I've been voting first every time. Can I pass for now?
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm in full support to bonding, to approve it, and I worry about the higher construction costs down the road, and I kind of see the urgency in doing this, so I support it.
Kevin?
Yeah, other than being astounded at how expensive these things are, I'm fully supportive of bonding it.
Martha?
Yes, Kevin, I fully agree with you about that. Yeah. The other thing, I just want to make one comment about playgrounds in general. And this is, I think, looking into the future, but it applies to this one too, that as a lot of the materials that are used to build these playgrounds are made out of plastic. And when the playgrounds fall apart in 20 or 30 years, the plastic gets disposed of. And I just would, I'm putting this down as the record. I just would like to see some imagination given, on the part of the city, the schools to try to think beyond just the alternatives of what the playground vendors are supplying now, which are, as I said, largely are plastic, if we really want to truly be a sustainable community. So that said, I support this, and I think we should bond it and we should do it soon, because I think these things are going to get even more costly.
Chris Tate?
Yeah, I fully support this project. I'd say this project is my priority in this round. And bonding, I'd like to pay for as much upfront as we can and bond the rest.
Julia?
I support it. I support bonding it to the extent that we need to. So if we don't have to bond at all, I think I would be in favor of that. And Martha, I absolutely hear what you're saying about the unbelievable use of plastic in playground areas. We had a beautiful wooden structure once upon a time at Jackson Street School, and it was rodent filled. It's really hard to develop structures, and maybe we'll find a nice answer. My hope at Mains Field, where we'll be able to use the flooding to our advantage and pull out kayaks made of wood. We're going to get rid of the plastic kayaks as well. So let's hope. Anyway, I support this.
Devin?
Given the hour, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but I'm so happy you mentioned Jackson Street School. The PTO, I was on the CPA when that went through, and it cost $110,000, and the PTO helped pay for part of it. So I looked back, and now we've done Ryan Road for 720, and now we're looking at Leeds for 600,000. And I guess I'm wanting to just raise the issue about how the cost estimates on these are done. It's one thing if you do sort of value engineering and you tell O'Brien that you've got $500,000, what can they build for you? And would they use some felled trees and some interesting natural things that would be very inexpensive? or if you just ask them to do you a budget and they're going to do a budget at $600,000. So that's just me pontificating. I'm actually for the project. You know, I just would love to have had some design work forcing them to give you a more practical bid. That's it. Thanks.
Julia, do you want to comment on that?
I like that. I agree. This is an interesting project, right? This is a playground project that really didn't come to. We were informed that it was going to be coming to CPC, but did not come before Parks and Rec. It's school.
Chris Hellman.
I think I think that this project, first off, fully support, bond to the extent necessary. I think it raises for me a lot of issues that other people have raised. Chris Tate brought up the fact that we're now being asked to increasingly foot the overwhelming majority, if not the totality, of projects. Devin, I believe, mentioned that these are projects that have traditionally been funded by the city and not by CPC recommendations. And throw on top of that the fact that we have bonded one playground, are about to probably bond another, and I cannot imagine that we won't be asked to bond another in the foreseeable future. One of the things that I thought about this, and I don't want to get into the discussion now, but one of the things, and I don't want to set it as a condition on this, but one of the things that I thought would be useful to me, because when Leeds came to us to present this proposal to us, one of the things I asked is where did the project come from? And it came from the school. It didn't come from the education, the school department. It came from the school, which means that each individual school is pursuing these things on their own. That gives us zero ability to do planning because we have no idea where they're coming from and when they're going to approach. So what I would like to ask the school department to do is to do a survey for us of what they see as potential requests coming out and let them do the legwork, talk to the schools. And also within that, maybe prioritization and let them set up the rubric, but whether it's, condition or utilization or however about how, if they were going to fund them, how they would prioritize them. Because I do not, I want to continue to fund these things. I'd be more than happy to lose my job over funding a playground on the committee because I think it's that important. But I think if we can get ahead of what I'm sure will be future requests that are going to require us to do additional bonding, I think it would be very useful to us. So.
Did everyone have a chance to? Oh, Devin.
Julia, would it be correct to ask the rec department to have been involved in this? I don't know the process for your city work, but that's okay.
No, because it's school, and it would have. I think Chris Hellman's point is a really, really good point, which is that it could have come through school department, school committee, but it's coming from a school.
Right.
And we have many schools in this city.
Yeah, well, and we've set precedent for funding them, but thank you, Chris.
That's right.
Usual.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the Leeds School Playground project? I think, Chris, when you were talking about putting together all of these different playground criteria, we could add JFK to that too. They've come to us with the tennis courts and the basketball courts. Will the high school come to us with any of that stuff as well? So it's not just the elementary schools, but the middle and high school as well as they. Julia?
Although in that instance, it was Parks and Rec. So this is this funny thing where there are some facilities that are half Parks and Rec and half school on school grounds, and some facilities that are just school. And you have to really dissect that one out. So the tennis courts and basketball courts, which are about to start work, that was Parks and Rec, not school.
Great. Good. Thank you, Julia. We lost you there for just a moment. Okay, so is there a motion on the floor to fund at 639,615 the Lead School Playground project? And I think that motion could be tweaked to say bonding to the capacity that we need to bond for that. Does someone want to make that proposal?
So moved.
All right, that was Chris
Second.
Tate. And a second by Kevin. Any further discussion on this? Sarah?
Okay. Roll call vote, Lemmy?
Yes.
Getting a lot of pages here, hold on. Martha?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Devin?
Yes.
Chris Tate?
Yes.
Chris Hellman?
Yes.
And Brian.
Yes. All right, we have 8 projects. Actually, we have 9 projects in the shopping cart, right? Because we have 2 for DAR, one at the first phase, one at the second phase. We've sort of tweaked them apart, but we have 9 projects in there. Ken's, yes.
Do you have to put the Forbes small project in that list now?
No, I think we're done with that. I think that's funded and gone out. So we started, you're right, we started with 9 projects, Devin, but we're looking at eight tonight, and we have voted on that Forbes one.
And Brian, we can pull the recreation projects from the open space reserve. That's allowed.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't need to worry about holding back on the 20,000 there. Sarah, are you able to do a quick, can we do a little quick math exercise to see what we would be if we were to bond the Lead School project, how much would we be bonding?
So it somewhat will depend on the way that the Clap House moves forward, because if it moves forward all in one lump project, it will be a different amount than funding the 2 phases. So it would be 248,743 for the first phase. And the 2 phases together would be 316,553.
So either 316 if we were to bond both, I'm sorry, if we were to fund both phases of Clap House, and 258, is that what you said?
248,700
248
for
if
the
we're,
first phase.
okay,
And then in a later phase, you that cost increase for the second portion of that project would be seen, so that you're basically saving $40,000 by lumping them together, should this be funded in a subsequent CPA round.
okay. Everybody got that? So now, Sarah, in terms of a length of time bonding, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, is that something we would talk about now? Would we wait to talk about that for a final meeting?
5 years seems to be how these types of projects for around this amount of money have gone lately. So 5 years is what bond council recommended for the previous 2 projects, and
Okay.
likely that would remain the same.
And do we know what the rate is on that?
The combined rate was just under 3.2%, which I was
Okay.
surprised at. That was a good rate.
It seems like a very reasonable rate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3.2%. Okay, so we have 9 projects in our shopping cart that can only fit 8 items, but can be reduced. Let's go around, just one last quick go round if we can do that. And see where people are at with that, if that's okay. We'll start in the direction that I'm looking at people. Lemmy, you want to go?
Yes, I think I support funding the Clap House at 2/3 in favor of putting more towards leads and less bonding.
Okay. Jeff?
Same position.
Same as Lemmy?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin?
I agree, same.
Martha?
I'm in favor of funding the clap house in full. So it would increase the bonding for leads.
Chris Tate?
I am in favor of partially funding Clap House and putting more money towards leads.
Julia?
I would support the full funding on Clap House.
Devin?
I'm surprising myself by saying yes to the full funding on the Clap House because possibly the kitchen project is the one that's going to be most affected by tariffs. And if they could possibly purchase the appliances and get those in place, and we're going to spend more to divide it up if we divide it. So I'm leaning towards full funding for that.
Chris Hellman?
I think I can support full funding at this point.
I'm getting it down as a 4-4, with 4 people supporting full funding and 4 people supporting partial funding. And I totally reject the idea of me being the tiebreaker.
No, Brian, you got to do it.
Is there any other option here? Oh
Then
my-
don't vote for then vote first, Brian. Don't vote last.
Oh my. Anybody want to switch their vote, hearing what other people have decided?
I was actually pretty ambivalent, and so I'm happy, given Devin's comment about increasing costs in the future, it may not save us a lot. So I'm comfortable with voting on to support the whole funding now for Clap House.
Would it help
Wow.
to hear Sarah's totals on what the bonding number would end up being?
Sarah, are you able to do that?
I know she's been working on it.
Yeah, hey,
Kevin, I'm forever in your debt. Thank you. It's too late and I'm too exhausted to be a tiebreaker.
Now that he's taken you off the hook, Brian, what would you have voted?
I would vote for partial funding.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll stick with my original.
I have to wonder if at three, and I'm not good enough at math, but if at 3.2%, the amount that we end up spending for bonding the extra $100,000 or so, which is partially offset by the 40,000 or so in savings we accrue by doing the whole thing at once, what the actual total cost, additional cost of the additional bonding actually ends up being. I mean, I know there is going to be some, but I'm wondering if it's getting small enough that I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
yeah, and I can work that out for the next meeting if that's something people are interested in. So if the Clap House were funded in full, it looks like we would have to bond of 365,000 for the playground.
And is there a way to tease out what that 3.2% over 5 years would be?
I don't know if the 3.2% is still applicable, so this wouldn't go out to bond until this time next year. So things could change between now and then.
I mean, if it is 3.2% of 360,000, what's that? Somewhere around 10 or 11,000 a year for 5 years. So that's at 52 or 3,000, something like that. Am I doing the math correct? Just, I mean, that's what we're going to be paying for that 350,000 to bond, right? 369, 10 and a half. Anybody with me on the math? Somewhere around 10,000 a year. 50,000 over the course of 5 years?
Well, and
Or is it
Um,
less because the principal goes down and then we have the interest on that?
right. And Chris said he wasn't very good with numbers, but he's thinking right about this is that we would spend more money not doing I mean, if we do the clap house later and separate it and take the $40,000 hit for breaking up the project, we lose that money. You know, we spend less on the bonding than we do on the elevated cost of the project.
I don't know if we spend less, but I think it may get us to a point where the difference is really minimal.
Is negligible.
Yeah.
I'm changing my vote to a yes on full funding of the clap. Sarah, you still trying to figure things out for us?
Yeah, I mean, the difference in the interest on the 40,000 would not, there would be an overall cost savings to do the whole thing all at once.
Okay. And we have voted on that. Okay, so we have a final vote tonight, which is we have 8 projects now in the shopping cart that we are checking out, fully funding the Clap House, the Historic Northampton Project, Mains Field, Ruggles Center, Boggy Meadow Trail, Laurel Park, Cemetery Stone. We are partially funding Leeds School with 300 something thousand, right? And bonding the rest. Is there a motion to check out with our shopping cart with those items?
Before we do that, Brian, do we want to entertain any conditions on any of the proposals?
Well, I'm wondering, Chris and others, if we want to mull that over for 2 weeks. We have other business to attend to in 2 weeks, including council orders, correct, Sarah?
Yeah, so we could do if it makes sense for everyone, we could do the council orders and to make this cleaner in the bonding process, it is helpful if the committee puts together a report. We've been using the minutes, but that wasn't what bond council was really looking for. So if it's okay with everyone, we could put off the final vote along with the approval of the council orders until next time.
The final checkout vote?
The final checkout vote.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to
feel-
meeting 2 weeks from now, partly because I'd like for Sarah to be able to wrap up some numbers and get them to us, and I don't think it would be a long meeting in 2 weeks.
No. At that point, we have another agenda item tonight that we could put off, which would be to the commercial and industrial exemption that we can talk about at that point. So as everybody is good with that, we're going to park our shopping cart in the corner of the CPA store here and hope that all 8 items are still there when we come back in 2 weeks. That next meeting would be when?
So April 30th, 2 weeks.
April 30th. Okay, so that's 3 meetings this week. Hopefully folks are okay with that. Wednesday, April the 30th, at 7 o'clock for a final checkout. Martha?
Yes, I just wondered in that 2-week period if we could request, maybe it's too late for this, but request some additional information from the Ruggles Center about what they actually plan to do. I felt like we didn't really have much information tonight that was up to date. And I would feel more comfortable if I actually knew what they were really planning to do. You could see it on paper with a budget. Is that possible to ask for that, or is it too late?
Kevin is still here joining us. Kevin?
I guess we can try and provide any information that you want. I'd certainly like to invite you all out to see it personally, if that would be helpful for you.
I have been by there to look at it. So I just think it would be helpful to have a final plan that calls out materials and dimensions and gives us more information about the grades there. It's just, there are too many ifs and unknowns for me to feel comfortable at this point.
Devin?
Would it, Martha, would it suit if we ask them to have a conversation with the building office for the permit, not to get the permit, but just to have a conversation with the permitting office to see if this would be part of their assessment?
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to do that, if what they've prepared is at a level that can be reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, I mean, from my planning board experience, that's the building department's responsibility. And so if
Right.
they just went and had that conversation and we were told, yes, that's part of what we'll assess, then that gives them the reason to come back to us and tell us we've got to do more or less.
Tris, are you hearing this? Do you have?
Yes.
comment?
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, I'll bring it to the building inspector right away and resolve that. The only question I think raised that is in my mind is the use of city property between our property line and the sidewalk.
He'll tell you that.
I don't think will be an issue. And if it is an issue, we can just simply eliminate a parking space. But the question of the surface, since our grant is so small compared to everybody else, we would love to pave that. That would solve that question of gravel versus, whatever. Can we add that to our budget, paving? I mean, the orders of magnitude larger of all the other projects, it would be a small amount for the whole picture, big picture.
I think whatever information you want to provide to us in the next 2 weeks would be helpful for us in making decisions.
Okay.
That'd be very helpful.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If you're able to get quotes in that quick amount of time, that would be wonderful. Great. Any other questions or comments about what our process is? We're meeting again in 2 weeks on April the 30th. We have a shopping cart full of stuff we have not checked out. We can revisit each and every item as we so choose. We'll be thinking of conditions to put forth if necessary on any of those projects. We will review council orders that Sarah is able to prepare for us, correct? For 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now. We'll also hopefully have time for discussion because I feel like it's too late tonight to discuss the exempting industrial commercial property for the first 100,000 of property tax. If that's okay, we'll put off that agenda. Any other business not foreseen when the agenda was published? Okay, good to go. All right, thank you, Sarah. Happy rest of April, folks, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Appreciate it.